Hello, and welcome to Family Survival Protocol, where we discuss items of interest, breaking news, health and wellness, as well as developments in our local and global communities. I'm Desert Rose, and today I will be discussing our Earthwatch report. Let's begin with earthquakes. We have 3 6.9er off of Andreanof Island. One was downgraded to a 6.4. Now we go to earthquake 3D. We have an earthquake in Chile, a 5.3, and two in the Gulf of California, a 4.8 and a 4.6. Moving on to Africa, we have a 4.5 in Tanzania and a 4.6 in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. And in the Pacific, we have one 5.0 south of the Fiji Islands and three in Tonga, two 5.2s and one 5.1. We also have a 4.8 south of the Kermadec Islands. A tsunami bulletin has been issued for the Pacific Ocean region off of Andreanof Island in the Aleutians, where we had the 3 6.9 quakes. We have volcanic activity in Indonesia and in Mexico. In Indonesia, West Sumatra, we have Mount Merapi volcano, which has erupted on Indonesia's Sumatra Island, spewing thick gray smoke up to 1.5 kilometers into the sky. Monitoring official Suparno said Mount Merapi's eruption on Wednesday is its strongest since August of last year, when its status was raised to level 3 out of 4. Suparno says there is no plan for an evacuation because the nearest villages are far beyond the danger zone of 3 kilometers from the crater. We also have quite a bit of activity in Mexico. The states of Puebla and Mexico, Popocatépetl volcano has erupted. At least 26 eruptions accompanied by steam and gas, as well as a volcano-tectonic quake, were registered as a consequence of the Mexican volcano activity during the last hours. It was reported. The National Center of Disaster Prevention said eruptions were of low and medium intensity with no ash expulsion in any of them. According to the institution, the volcano-tectonic quake was registered at 11:54 local time. We have extreme weather in the United Kingdom. Yesterday we discussed the heavy rains in Scotland. Today it is England's turn. Homes have been evacuated and train services disrupted as heavy downpours continue across parts of the UK. In England, the Environment Agency has issued 78 flood warnings, indicating flood is expected for the Midlands, the Northeast and Northwest. There is one in place for Wales. In Scotland, there are 8 flood warnings, mostly for the borders, while in Northern Ireland there is no flood warning system, but the Met Office has warned of persistent rain and gales. The wet and windy start to the week has persisted into Wednesday, with more than a month's worth of rain falling in some places across the UK. Britain has been hit with the most extreme September weather for decades, with hundreds evacuated from their homes and fire and rescue teams battling against the floods to help residents of some of the worst hit areas. Cars sailed down streets after being abandoned by motorists, and a block of flats in Newburn, Newcastle were left with their foundations exposed as the town struggled with another day of heavy rain. Mick Murphy, technical director of Newcastle City Council, told the BBC that the Spencer Court flats were extremely unstable, adding that he had never seen anything like this in 33 years of civil engineering experience. It was evacuated close to a bicycle shop which had thousands of pounds worth of bicycles stolen. We have increased patrols in Newburn, said Acting Chief Superintendent Dave Byrne of Newcastle Area Command. He added, "It is despicable if people are thinking of taking advantage of the bad weather and using it as an opportunity to break into properties." There are 57 flood warnings and 100 flood alerts currently in force across the UK, with the north of England worse affected. Although the worst of the rain has now passed, river levels in some places were still rising as water comes down through the systems. The Environment Agency said rivers such as the Ouse which flows through York, and the Dane, which flows through Crewe, Nantwich, and Northwich, had yet to peak this afternoon and posed a real risk of flooding. Some towns have been cut in half by the floods, as bridges were swamped by the swollen river conditions. Tadcaster was split in two by the closure of the bridge, which carries the A659 over the bridge wharf as a precaution after firefighters noticed water seeping through the structure. Shut roads and flooded railways have caused travel chaos, with diversions in place across the affected counties. The A1 near Catterick will remain closed all day, police had said. An aerial view showing floodwater from the River Ouse in York, North Yorkshire, as communities are being warned of the possibility of more flooding. Workers evacuated from their offices in York City Centre on Wednesday. However, for some, coping with the flooding is just the first obstacle to overcome. After the floods subside, residents and business owners will have to cope with the huge amounts of mud and debris left by the floods. Some of these deposits have already rendered areas unrecognizable. Residents have had to use ladders to bridge their way across the islands of mud that have been left by the floods. Councils have called on the government to set up an emergency fund to help pay for millions of pounds of repairs to roads damaged by the persistent rain and flooding in the past few months. A flooded back garden in Morpeth, where hundreds have been evacuated after storms. It said funds might have to be diverted from elsewhere to plug the gap, causing cuts to services or planned infrastructure projects that aim to boost growth being put on the back burner. Now we go on to storms. In the Atlantic, we have Tropical Depression Nadine. She's still around, although stumbling about a bit. She's presently in the Atlantic about 500 miles west off the coast of Morocco. Her original trajectory was northeast. However, she has done a turnabout and now looks to be headed in a northerly direction after having made a brief loop. Moving on to the Pacific, we have Super Typhoon Jelawat. She's still on course, while yesterday's trajectory heading northeast along the coast. Having left the Philippines behind, is now on her way towards Taiwan. Tropical Depression Miriam continues her northerly trek and looks to be hugging the west coast, keeping about 200 miles off the Pacific into the Pacific Ocean between them as she travels up towards San Diego. Her estimated trajectory is expected to take a slight turn to the west, taking it out into the Pacific a bit further than her present path. And Typhoon Ewiniar is ahead of Jelawat in the Pacific, skirting along the Japanese coastline, about 250 miles out, approaching Tokyo to the west of him. We have an epidemic hazard in South Denmark, Dania, in the Odense University Hospital. 5 persons showing symptoms of infection from a SARS-like virus have been admitted to Odense University Hospital, central Denmark. The hospital said in a press statement Tuesday. The 5 patients are currently being examined for symptoms of infection from a new coronavirus, which can lead to severe respiratory disease. Coronaviruses are a large family of viruses, including those which cause the common cold as well as severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, an outbreak of which killed some 800 people in 2003. The new coronavirus is thought to have an incubation period lasting 7 to 10 days and has previously been found among patients who had traveled from Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Now we head out to space, where we have Earth-approaching objects. We have 2012 SL50 due on the 27th of September, which is today, at 0.0073 AU's distance. We also have scheduled for today 2012 QF42, 0.1095 AU distance. And for tomorrow, we have 2012 SY49. That one will be at 0.0067 AU's distance. Also for the 28th, 2012 S132 at 0.0297 AU's distance. For the 30th, we have 2012 SM50, 3 days away at 0.1074 AU's distance. We have a hazmat situation in Slovakia, in the town of Bratislava at Auto Klima Company. A chemical leak on the premises of the Auto Klima Company in Bratislava district has injured 16 people, one seriously. The fire brigade in Bratislava reported that the leak was of styrene, an organic chemical, and sulfur dioxide. The site was evacuated and decontaminated process was begun, and the building's power supply disconnected. Police spokesperson Petra Hraskova said the officers were investigating the cause of the accident. 16 people were hospitalized for exposure to poisonous gases in a leak Wednesday. 15 people suffered light injuries and one was injured more seriously. All of them were taken to the hospital. Spokesman for emergency services Boris Chamel told AFP. The styrene and sulfur dioxide leak occurred at a firm making air conditioning for automobiles, which opened on the premises of the former chemicals plant located, media reported. Sulfur dioxide is a toxic gas, a key contributor to so-called acid rain. Both chemicals in question may cause breathing problems and possibly cancer. For your convenience, I will be placing the link to the articles in the details section below so that you can check it out for yourself, and also so you can take a look at the items that could not be put on the video. This is Desert Rose for Family Survivor Protocol. Thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to check back for more reports in the near future. Stay safe and be well.